From politicians to police to his own lover, no one was safe from John Jairo Velázquez, Pablo Escobar's top hitman. During the 1980s, John Jairo Velázquez killed over 250 people and orchestrated the deaths of 3,000 more while working for drug kingpin Pablo Escobar. "I'm a professional killer. I kill for money. I also killed out of love and respect for Pablo Escobar," he said in the Russia Today documentary Escobar's Hitman. Velázquez, better known as Popeye, has become a controversial figure in Colombia since his release from prison in 2014 after serving 22 years for his crimes. Far from being an outcast, he is seen by some as a hero. On the street, people shake his hand and rush to take photographs with him. He has certainly profited from his newfound celebrity status by writing 2 books, starring in an action film, and being involved in the production of a Netflix show based on his life in prison. He's also become an unlikely political activist with his popular YouTube channel where he routinely criticizes the Colombian government and speaks against corruption. Though he admits to his wrongdoings, he believes he served his time, even claiming that he paid for Escobar's crimes too. He says he is now a reformed man who finds more joy in writing books than in killing. Surprisingly, some of his victims agree that he has paid his dues. Others, however, believe he shows no real remorse and should be back in prison. How John Jairo Velázquez got into the Medellín Cartel. John Jairo Velázquez was born 70 miles north of Medellín in the Colombian town of Urumal. At age 12, his family moved to Itagüí, a suburb of Medellín, where he quickly embarked on a life of crime. His fascination with firearms led him to become a local policeman and to take a course at the Officer Candidate School for Marines. "I had a wide jaw and was quite strong," he said. "One day, I was back in my neighborhood, wearing my uniform, when a neighbor said, 'It's Popeye.' The nickname stuck, but life in the Marines did not, and soon he joined the mafia full-time. Initially, he worked for a childhood friend, but it wasn't long before he was operating directly under Pablo Escobar. At 18, he committed his first murder, killing a bus dispatcher in Medellín. When he was the driver, the mother of a friend of Pablo Escobar's got off the bus and had a fall, and he didn't help her. He left her there and she died. So, when this guy got some money, he asked Pablo Escobar to help him get revenge on this driver. "I made some inquiries, found the guy and killed him." Velázquez said he felt nothing at all after killing him. "It was then that I realized I had a stomach for crime." In the early 1980s, Escobar helped form Los Extraditables to wage war against the Colombian state to prevent the extradition of drug traffickers to the United States. By then, Velázquez had become Escobar's most loyal hitman, leading operations that included contract killings, car bombings, and kidnappings. According to Velázquez, Escobar armed all the comunas in Medellín, the sicarios, or hitmen. They were his base people. Velázquez and his hitmen would each kill 5, 6, even 12 people a day, including policemen, judges, presidential candidates, rivals, and civilians. "We started planting bombs to kill government ministers, journalists, and judges. We'd kidnap politicians, so they'd amend the constitution and stop the Colombians being extradited." He organized the kidnapping of Attorney General Carlos Moro Hoyos and Mayor Andrés Pastrana Arango, who would later become the Colombian president in 1998. Despite the terror, presidential candidate Luis Carlos Galán remained steadfast in his support of extradition, and in 1989 he was assassinated. "I felt satisfaction after killing Galán," Velázquez told Mexican reporter Adela Mija in an exclusive 2-hour interview in 2015. "Today I realize it was a horrible mistake." The bombing of Avianca 203, Cesar Gaviria succeeded Galán and quickly became a target for Escobar's assassins. On November 27, 1989, a bomb was placed on Avianca Flight 203, which Gaviria was scheduled to board. He didn't, and 107 passengers lost their lives when the plane exploded mid-air. Some speculate that John Jairo Velázquez orchestrated the attack, but he denies this, attributing the bombing to Carlos Mario Urquijo, another of Escobar's hitmen, and the DAS, the now-defunct Colombian secret police. Velázquez carried out Escobar's orders without hesitation, even when it meant killing Escobar's ex-girlfriend Wendy Chavarriaga Gil, who had become an informant. At the time, she was also Velázquez's girlfriend, whom he described as the love of my life. "One day the boss calls me in and plays a tape for me. It was Señorita Wendy chatting with a police captain. Unable to kill her himself, Velázquez arranged to meet her at a restaurant and sent in his crew. He recalls phoning the restaurant to speak with her and instructing his men to shoot her as soon as she answered, which they did. When he heard the 2 shots, he felt a rush of love and anger inside him. No one was safe from their wrath. However, Velázquez mentioned one exception: Escobar never sanctioned killing someone in front of their child. Despite this, Escobar viewed the death of children from car bombs as collateral damage. The police were the primary targets of the Medellín Cartel's savagery. Escobar commanded his hitmen to kill police officers indiscriminately. According to Velázquez, they killed 540 officers and wounded 800 more. No other criminal organization in the world has ever confronted the police that way, he said. In response, the police offered a 2,700 million peso bounty for Escobar and 100 million pesos for each of his 4 top hitmen, including Velázquez. In 1991, a temporary truce was established when Escobar agreed to imprisonment for 5 years in exchange for the abolishment of a proposed extradition treaty with the United States. Velázquez joined him in prison, along with some of Escobar's other lieutenants. Life in prison and life after Escobar. From the outset, Escobar held sway. La Catedral prison was constructed to his specifications by his own engineers. Inside, it was business as usual. Despite being incarcerated, he continued his illicit activities. However, after ordering executions within La Catedral, the Colombian government decided it was time to transfer him to a conventional prison. What the authorities didn't anticipate was Escobar's secret control over the facility, a breaker switch concealed in the wall of his cell, allowing him to deactivate the 10,000-volt perimeter fence. After only 13 months at La Catedral, Escobar and several of his associates managed to escape. Velázquez vividly remembers their departure, stealthily evading the army patrols on the hills below. "We listened to the army's radio transmissions, and we walked right past them. We were armed, and they didn't detect us. Despite the guard tower spotlights scanning back and forth, we slipped away." In October 1992, just 2 months into their fugitive status, John Jairo Velázquez surrendered to the police, never crossing paths with Escobar again. Although it was assumed Velázquez would be safer in prison than with Escobar, he faced numerous close calls, including 7 attempts on his life through poison, bullets, knives, and even poisoned knives. Velázquez adapted, forming strategic alliances to ensure his survival, particularly after his transfer to Colombia prison, 100 miles north of Bogotá. While incarcerated, he learned of Escobar's death. "I was numb. My soul mourned. But I didn't shed a tear," he reflected. War and prison hardened you. Since his release in 2014, Velázquez has openly discussed his tenure as Escobar's chief hitman, even meeting some victims and expressing remorse for the harm he caused. However, doubts linger regarding his sincerity and redemption. Troublingly, when Gonzalo Rojas, whose father perished in Avianca Flight 203, withheld forgiveness, Velázquez lashed out, asserting he had paid for his actions and even accusing Rojas of being malicious. Velázquez appears to expect absolution from victims and their kin, yet his stance shifts if his own family were to suffer. "If anyone were to avenge by harming my son, I wouldn't forgive the perpetrator. I'd seek them out and exact vengeance." The Colombian hitman who became a YouTube star. Imagine if the notorious mafia boss John Gotti, renowned for his criminal exploits and captivating charisma, had a YouTube channel. Picture him using this platform to portray himself as a remorseful hitman, sharing tales of violence while seeking forgiveness for his past crimes. In Colombia, a real-life equivalent to such an improbable YouTube sensation exists in John Jairo Velázquez, formerly an enforcer for the Medellín drug cartel. Velázquez, also known as Popeye, has admitted to committing numerous murders on behalf of his boss, Pablo Escobar. After spending over 20 years in prison for his involvement in the assassination of a Colombian presidential candidate in 1989, Velázquez has embarked on a new endeavor, a Spanish-language YouTube series focused on redemption. Despite initially boasting 81 videos, his underlying message remains one of seeking forgiveness. Now branded as Popeye Arrepentido, or Remorseful Popeye, Velázquez claims that his intention is not to monetize his criminal past but rather to share his experiences and opinions as an activist. His videos have garnered over 117,000 subscribers and 9.5 million views, with comments overflowing with praise and admiration. John Jairo Velázquez, 57, dies. John Jairo Velázquez, once notorious for his involvement in the Medellín drug cartel and his admission of committing hundreds of murders on behalf of Pablo Escobar, passed away on February 6 in Bogotá, Colombia, at the age of 57. His death, due to late-stage stomach cancer, was confirmed by Colombia's National Penitentiary and Prison Institute. Imprisoned on extortion charges in 2018, Velázquez had been hospitalized since December 31. Velázquez claimed to have committed over 300 murders and been linked to the deaths of 3,000 others, though these claims were never substantiated. He famously stated, "I'm a professional killer, I killed for money," in the 2017 documentary Escobar's Hitman. Despite spending 22 years behind bars for his role in plotting the assassination of a Colombian presidential candidate in 1989, Velázquez gained notoriety after his release on parole in 2014. Capitalizing on his criminal past, Velázquez leveraged his notoriety into a lucrative business, boasting over 1.2 million subscribers on his YouTube channel, Popeye Arrepentido, Remorseful Popeye. He also directed a biographical film, authored 2 books, and conducted tours of Medellín. However, his actions stirred controversy, particularly among the relatives of his victims and law enforcement officials, who criticized his celebrity status as an affront to justice.